Hi guys, today I wanted to discuss the federal self-employed category for Canadian immigration, which is also known as the immigration category for artists and athletes. Um, let's start with a small introduction about me. My name is Rashid. I am an ICCRC regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I'm also a member of Canadian Association for Professional Immigration Consultants, and I am a commissioner for taking affidavits in Ontario. My office is in Milton, Ontario, Canada, and you can find more information about me, about my company, which is Possibilities Canadian Immigration Consulting, by visiting pcici.ca. You can also get in touch through WhatsApp, especially for those who are living in other parts of the world. When it's harder for you to call, you can reach me by 647 +1 647 861 5080, and my email is info@pcici.ca. Also, I have this YouTube channel, which is also Possibilities Canadian Immigration Consulting, same name as that of my company. There I try to upload relevant videos about Canadian immigration, life in Canada. I try to interview different professionals to share their settlement experiences with you, where they share their valuable advice with you. And check out the channel. You might find something useful over there that can help you in your Canadian journey. Even if you want to apply somewhere in the distant future, you might have some questions in your mind, but hopefully by visiting this channel, you can enhance your knowledge about Canada. Also, do subscribe to the channel, so whenever there is any major change in Canadian immigration policy, anything that you need to know and you need to act quick, I try to make a video and share it online so you can get that information on time. So the interesting part about this particular category of federal self-employed program is that not a lot of people know about it, and you can imagine why a lot of people don't know about it is because this is a very specific category which targets a very specific group of people. It's not open to all occupations. And as a result, I have this information from the previous years. In 2016, only 267 applications were received for this category. In 2015, the number was even lower at 260. In 2014, it was 159, and so on and so forth. In 2012, it was just 89 applications from all over the world for this particular category. Whereas for 2020 and 2021, the government has increased the target for this particular category, and they are aiming to accept about 700 applications. So there's a lot of room to accept more applications. Although this particular number 700 will be shared with the federal startup visa program, but even in the federal startup visa program, so far there have been very few applications. So the startup visa program is a whole other story. It's also a very interesting program, but I think that's the topic for another video. So yes, do think about this category. There's a lot of room for more applications. So what is it really about? Let's look at the definition of this category as per law. As per Immigration and Refugee Protection Regulations R100 subsection 1, for the purposes of subsection 12(2) of the Act, which is the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, the law, the self-employed persons class is hereby prescribed as a class of persons who may become permanent residents on the basis of their ability to become economically established in Canada. So this category is part of economic immigration. There are different major categories of immigration: economic category, family reunification, so on and so forth, but this particular category falls under the economic category, and who are self-employed persons within the meaning of subsection 88(1). So in order to qualify for this particular category, you have to be self-employed, and we will dig deeper into this self-employment. Self-employed person means a foreign national who has relevant experience. Now this part is very important: relevant experience, and has the intention and the ability to be self-employed in Canada. and to make a significant contribution to specified economic activities in Canada. So there are a few things which are very important in this definition. First of all, you need to be self-employed. So before you apply, you need to have a relevant experience as a self-employed person within a few specified occupations that I will discuss soon. So this is not for everyone. This is not for engineers. This is not for doctors. This is limited to a very specific small group of people, and they must be self-employed. It is very important. If you are an employee, you cannot apply for this category. Also, the second part is very important. This is your past experience is just 50% of the deal. The next part is your intention and ability to be self-employed in Canada. So you must be willing to be self-employed in Canada as well. It's not like you were self-employed in your home country, but when you want to come to Canada, you just want to get a job. You should be self-employed when you come to Canada, and you should have the ability to be self-employed. You have to demonstrate this through your application that you do have the ability to be self-employed. And we will go into the details of these definitions in the upcoming slides. By the way, if you have any questions related to this topic or any other topic, feel free to ask, and I will try my best to respond to your questions on time. So let's dive a bit deeper into the definition of relevant experience. As per section 88.1, relevant experience means, and I'll just read it out because it's the law, I don't want to make any changes in this. Let me get rid of this so you can also read it. Relevant experience in respect of a self-employed person other than a self-employment person selected by a province means a minimum of 2 years of experience during the period beginning 5 years before the date of application for a permanent resident visa and ending on the day a determination is made in respect of the application, consisting of in respect of cultural activities. So if you are applying as an artist, you must have 2 1-year periods of experience in self-employment in cultural activities, or 2 1-year periods of experience in participation at a world-class level in cultural activities, or a combination of both. In respect of athletics, so now if you are an athlete, you must have 2 1-year periods of experience in self-employment in athletics, 2 1-year periods of experience in participation at a world-class level in athletics, or a combination of both. So as you can see, this category mainly targets artists and athletes, but the definition of artists is pretty broad, and you will see there are a lot of occupations that belong to this category. And usually when you think of artists, you only think of musicians, actors, comedians, so on and so forth, but as you will see, this is a very broad category. So which occupations are actually eligible to apply in this program? When we talk about artists, it includes the following: librarians, conservators and curators, archivists, authors and writers, editors, journalists, translators and interpreters, producers, directors, choreographers, conductors, composers and arrangers, musicians and singers, dancers, actors and comedians, painters, sculptors, and other visual artists. Then there are technical occupations. So for example, technical occupations in libraries, museums, and art galleries, photographers, graphic arts technicians, etc., announcers, creative designers and craft persons, and finally athletes, coaches and referees. So if you have experience in any of these occupations, that is self-employment. So we're not talking about employees. If you were self-employed in any of these occupations, you can potentially be eligible to apply for this category. Now the selection criteria is pretty straightforward. It's a points-based system. You get points. So for example, for education, you get a maximum of 25 points. For experience, your actual experience in these occupations, you get a maximum of 35 points. For age, you can get a maximum of 10 points. For your English or French language skills, which are the two official languages of Canada, you can claim up to 24 points. For adaptability, which mainly depends on the education and language skills of your spouse. So if you're married or in a common law relationship, you can claim an additional 6 points. If you're single, you're kind of out of luck, but it really doesn't matter. 6 points aren't that much for this particular category, and that adds up to a total of 100. Now, theoretically, if you have more than 35 points, 35 or higher, you are eligible to apply for this category. There is no need to go to 70, 80, 85 points like express entry, where the higher you score, the more your chances are. In this particular category, you just need to cross the threshold of 35 points. And as you can see, even if you don't have a very good education, even if you don't have good language skills, if you can just cross the threshold due to your experience, you can potentially be eligible to apply for this category. So at least on paper, this category seems too good to be true, very easy. That's why a lot of people who just look at the website, IRCC's website, they just think, if I can get 35 points, I can apply for this category. And I've been approached by people who were employees, but just because they thought that they can cross 35 points, they should be able to apply for it. But no, that's not the case. There are very specific things that you need to do in order to be eligible for this category, and one of those criteria is that you have to be self-employed. If you were doing a job, it doesn't matter even if you were a singer or a librarian or an actor or a comedian. If you were doing a job, if you weren't self-employed, if you were getting a salary, you cannot be eligible to apply for this category. Also, if you want to claim points for your language skills, you do have to take a language exam, for example, IELTS, CELPIP, or a French language exam. Without that, you cannot claim your scores. Whereas for education, you do not necessarily have to go through World Education Services, and you get your educational points based on the number of years of your education. So it's pretty straightforward in terms of the selection criteria. Now, how long does it take? That's a very common question with most categories for visa applications. These days, the Government of Canada, IRCC, are showing a processing time of 21 months, which is less than 2 years. But in the past, it has taken several years to apply for this particular category. But the good part is, if you have, even when it used to take a number of years, when you had your first stage of approval of your application, you were eligible to apply for a work permit, right? So you didn't necessarily have to wait for so many years. Once you had that first stage approval, you could apply for your work permit, come to Canada, and then start your self-employment. Although there is a small risk in it, because when you do come to Canada, you have to prove that you, on a work permit, you actually have to prove that you have made efforts, or you've at least made efforts, or you've actually started your self-employment in that particular occupation, because your application is still under process, and the visa officer might ask you for updated information, like what are you doing in Canada? Have you been self-employed, or have you just gotten a job, which puts your application under in a lot of risk. So, but yes, these days it is mainly due to 2 years, and one of the reasons for this shorter processing time is there's a particular visa post, Ankara, where they closed a lot of applications. Now, officially those applications were refused, but it is said that it was, there is a lawsuit still underway for those applications, and we'll find out more within some months. But apparently that did have a big impact on this shorter processing time. So all I'm saying is, although the website says 2 years, it can take longer than 2 years, but you have some options to still come to Canada within those 2 years and continue your self-employment here. Relevant experience. So how do you prove that you have relevant experience in this particular category, that you were um, and that you were self-employed as an artist or an athlete, you will need to provide different sorts of evidences of self-employment. It could include your tax documents, it could include your copies of the contracts that you had with different third parties where you provided them services. It can include reference letters from different people to whom you provided your services, especially if you are living in a country where there's a lot of dealing in cash. These reference letters can be really helpful in proving that you were actually self-employed. You could also show proof in the form of invitation letters to different conferences or different events, flight itineraries, or your boarding passes, so on and so forth. Whatever proves that you actually went to that event. Pictures are another very helpful source, especially when you do not have those financial documents to prove that you were self-employed. Second point to remember is the difference between self-employment versus business ownership. Now, in most of the countries, this is pretty clear. Self-employment generally falls under the umbrella of sole proprietorship. So if you were a sole proprietor, you were mainly selling your services, you were utilizing your talent to earn money. You basically were self-employed. But on the other hand, if you have a registered corporation and you have a number of employees working for you, and your sole way to make a living is not necessarily your talent, it's that company, that business, and your business management skills through which you're making money, it may not fall under the self-employment category. So your relevant experience has to be proven that it was actually self-employment, that you actually use your talent, whether you were a comedian or an actor, so you actually use your acting skills or your musical skills, so on and so forth, or your athletic skills to make that living, not your business management skills, although they can be a part in that, but mainly it has to be your talent. You have to prove that you made a living through your talent, and it has to be a significant portion of your income. There is no minimum criteria. You don't have to earn $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 or higher. There's no black and white number, but it has to be a significant portion. So it doesn't, it shouldn't be your hobby. It shouldn't be like you have a regular job, 9 to 5 job, and you just have a hobby where you go to different places once in a blue moon to sing or take part in different different events where you just participate and earn small money and then just claim that you just can't claim that experience. It has to be something that you do on a regular basis. So a lot of things are open to interpretation. For example, in express entry, there is a definition of full-time employment. You have to be employed for at least, you have to work at least 30 hours per week. Otherwise, it's not considered full-time employment. But here, there is no minimum requirement for hours, but it should be a significant portion of your earnings, of your income. For the first criteria, where you have to be self-employed, you also have to show evidence of participation, like we discussed earlier, through photographs, through different contracts, to show that you were not only self-employed, but you actually participated in different events, to prove that you were self-employed and you took part in different events as a self-employed person. The other thing is that if you were not self-employed, you have to be participating in different events at a world-class level. Now, what does world-class actually mean? Does it mean that you have to that you won a football World Cup, or a cricket World Cup, or a hockey World Cup, or does it mean that you have to be an actor who participated in Hollywood movies? Not necessarily. Again, this definition is open to interpretation somewhat. Even if you are someone who is very famous nationally or even locally within your region, but you had some connections, there was some interest in getting your services from an international level. For example, you were part of an international organization where you participated in different events, or you communicated with them, organized different events, and there has been a lot of interest from those international organizations about your talent, about your services, you can potentially meet the definition of world class. What do I mean by that? Say you are an artist and you had a local arts exhibition in your city and it was very successful, and you made the headlines in your local newspaper, maybe even your national newspaper, and someone approaches you from another country and they say that we would like you to participate in our exhibition in the future. That could potentially count as world class, especially if you actually went to that exhibition and participated. So yes, it is a bit of a gray area, but there is a broad range of activities that you might be doing to fit this definition of world class. Now, comparison with the entrepreneur immigration program. Again, this is an economic immigration program. You have to be self-employed, but there are some major differences between this program and the entrepreneur immigration program. And a few weeks ago, I made a video on entrepreneur immigration about the basic requirements and criterias. You can go back and have a look at that, but I will summarize it here for you. In the entrepreneur immigration program, there is always a requirement of a minimum net worth. For example, in Ontario, within the GTA, the minimum net worth required is, the minimum investment is 400,000 and the minimum net worth is 800,000. But if you want to do an ICT related business or outside of GTA, your minimum net worth is 400,000 and you have to invest a minimum of $200,000 in your business. So and so forth. Different provinces have their own criteria for minimum net worth and minimum amount that you should invest. But for the self-employed program, there is no requirement for minimum net worth or minimum investment. Similarly, for entrepreneur immigration, you do need a very detailed, very professional business plan. For self-employed program, business plan can help your cause for sure, because it shows that you have done your due diligence, but you don't necessarily need to provide evidence of that business plan. So even if you've done some market research to prove that you know what you're talking about, you have thought this through, you know how you will continue your self-employment in Canada, and you can prove that to the visa officer, it can be enough. You don't necessarily need to upload a business plan. And this is even included in their in the visa officer's operation manuals, that business plan is not really required because applicants have to bear extra cost for that. But again, if you do manage to have a business plan, it can definitely help your cause. So what are the next steps? First of all, I can understand that not a lot of people are artists and athletes, and if you're an artist and athlete, you can go ahead, use this information however you like. You can apply by yourself by going to cic.gc.ca, which is the Canadian government's website. Or if you need professional help, you can always get in touch with me. I'm an ICCRC regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I'm authorized to give you immigration advice and to submit your application for the self-employed program. If you know someone who can benefit from this video, do share it with them, because this is a very good option for a lot of those people who can't come to Canada through other means of immigration. And also in different parts of the world, artists and athletes don't really get fair compensation for their work. They're underpaid. So this could be a very good opportunity for them to restart their life in Canada, where you can definitely make a much better living, because even the minimum wage is much higher in Canada compared to other parts of the world. So if you know someone who can benefit from this, do share it with them, so they can go through it and do sort of a self-assessment to see if, whether or not they were self-employed, whether or not they meet the experience requirements, and whether or not they do fall under this occupation list that I shared earlier. To get in touch with me, you can again visit the website pcici.ca. You can send me an email at info@pcici.ca, or get in touch via WhatsApp +1 647 861 5080. Okay, so thank you very much for tuning in. For more videos, you can subscribe to Possibilities Canadian Immigration on YouTube and go through more videos. And if you have any immigration related questions, you can ask in the comment section or just get in touch with me, and I will try my best to to respond to your questions. That's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. Till next time, see you.